In a democratic government, the elected representatives are the rulers. However, even the rulers need to follow certain rules and guidelines. It is necessary to divide the decision-making power of the government into three separate branches: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. In short, the legislature makes the laws, the executive implements them, and the judiciary resolves disputes that arise out of major policy decisions. The legislature consists of an assembly of the people's representatives with the power to enact laws for a country. It also has the authority to raise taxes and to adopt the budget and other money bills. The executive is a group of persons with the authority to initiate major policies, make decisions, and implement them on the basis of constitutional laws. The judiciary is an institution that administers justice and resolves legal disputes. All the courts in the country are collectively called the judiciary. We will now see how a government order is passed, executed, and judged in the courts of law. Any major policy decision is conveyed through a government order. A government order is also called an office memorandum. One such government order was passed on August 13, 1990. The government passes a lot of orders every day on a variety of matters, but the one passed on August 13, 1990 was very important and became a major source of controversy. Let's take a look at the government order and what happened after it was passed. This order announced that 27% of vacancies in civil posts and services under the Government of India would be reserved for socially and economically backward classes, CBSE. Earlier, job reservations were only for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. With this order, the backward class people were also eligible for the quota of 27%. The Parliament is the National Assembly of elected representatives of the people. It exercises supreme political authority on behalf of the people. The Assembly of elected representatives of the people at the state level is called the legislature or the Legislative Assembly. The Parliament exercises political authority in several ways. The Parliament has the authority to enact laws. It can add new laws and change or abolish existing laws. The Parliament has direct and complete control over the government. All major decisions are made after the approval and support of the Parliament. The Parliament controls how the government spends public money. The money can be spent only if the Parliament approves of it. National policy and important public issues are discussed and debated in the Parliament. The Parliament consists of the office of the President of India and two houses: the Rajya Sabha or the Council of States and the Lok Sabha or the House of the People. Did you know the President of India is part of the Parliament but not a member of either house? The Rajya Sabha is the upper house of the Parliament of India. The Rajya Sabha consists of 250 members, of which 12 are nominated by the President of India for their expertise in specific fields of art, literature, science, and social services. These members are known as nominated members. The remainder of the Rajya Sabha is elected by state and territorial legislatures. The term of office is 6 years, and 1/3 of the members retire every 2 years. The Vice President is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. It is not subject to dissolution because when 1/3 of the members retire, the same number are elected. . The Lok Sabha is directly elected by the people of India. The Lok Sabha can have a maximum of 552 members, including 20 members from the Union Territories and 2 from the Anglo-Indian community. The Speaker presides over the sessions. Though the Rajya Sabha has some special powers, the Lok Sabha has supreme powers. Before a law is passed, it is discussed in both the houses. If there is a difference, the final decision is made after a joint session of both the houses. Due to a large number of members, the view of the Lok Sabha matters a lot. In a money bill, it has the final authority. Once the Lok Sabha passes the budget or a law related to money, the Rajya Sabha cannot reject it. The Rajya Sabha can just delay it by 14 days or suggest changes. The Lok Sabha controls the Council of Ministers. To become a Prime Minister, one needs the support of a majority of the members of the Lok Sabha. If the majority of the members of the Lok Sabha have no confidence in the Council of Ministers, then the entire Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister have to resign. In a democratic government, the functionaries need to execute decisions made by the party, the Parliament, or the senior ministers. They just execute the decisions, but do not have powers on behalf of the people. A group of such functionaries is called the executive, as it executes the policies of the government. The executive has 2 categories: political and permanent. The political executive consists of political leaders who are elected by the people for a specific term. The permanent executive includes members who are appointed on a long-term basis. These members remain in office even when the party in power changes. The permanent executive is also called the civil services. They work under the political executive and help in the administration. The political executive has more powers and the final say in all important decisions. The ministers make the final decision, as they are the representatives of the people. This is what happens in a democratic form of government. The ministers consult experts and then make decisions based on the overall objective of the government. The political executive includes the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The President appoints the leader of the majority or the coalition party that has a majority in the Lok Sabha as the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister remains in office as long as he or she remains the leader of the majority party or the coalition. In other words, the Prime Minister remains in office as long as he or she enjoys the confidence of the Lok Sabha. The remaining ministers are appointed by the President based on the Prime Minister's advice. These ministers are usually from the party or the coalition that has a majority in the Lok Sabha. Did you know a person who is not a member of Parliament can also become a minister? However, such a member has to get elected to one of the houses of the Parliament within 6 months of appointment. The group of ministers is called the Council of Ministers. It includes about 70 members of different ranks. The Council of Ministers includes cabinet ministers, ministers of state with independent charge, and ministers of state. A union cabinet minister is a senior minister from the ruling party in charge of a ministry. A cabinet minister may also hold additional charges of other ministries where no other cabinet minister is appointed. The cabinet is the internal ring of the Council of Ministers. It consists of around 20 members. The ministers of state with independent charge do not have a union cabinet minister overseeing that portfolio. They are in charge of smaller ministries and participate in cabinet meetings when invited. A minister of state is a junior minister with an overseeing cabinet minister, usually having specific responsibility in that ministry. For instance, a minister of state in the finance ministry may only handle taxation. A minister of state is attached to the cabinet minister concerned and has only administrative powers. Most important decisions are made in cabinet meetings. Due to this reason, parliamentary democracy is also known as the cabinet form of government. All ministers are supposed to honor the decisions of the cabinet. The Prime Minister has several powers as the head of the government. He chairs cabinet meetings and assigns work to the other ministers. He also has the power to dismiss ministers. If the Prime Minister resigns, the entire ministry is supposed to have resigned. The cabinet is the most powerful institution in India, and the Prime Minister is the most powerful member in the cabinet. Recently, the power of the Prime Ministers has increased so much that parliamentary democracies are sometimes called the prime ministerial form of government. Due to the major role of political parties in politics, and as the Prime Minister can control the cabinet and parliament through the party, the powers are concentrated on the Prime Minister. Earlier, Prime Ministers like Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi exercised a lot of authority and power as they had a lot of influence over the public. Due to coalition politics of recent times, the power of the Prime Minister has been somewhat limited. The Prime Minister has to consider the views of different partners in the coalition. This is because their support is important for the survival of the government. The President is the head of the state and has nominal powers. The President supervises the overall functioning of all political institutions in the country to achieve the objectives of the state. The President is not directly elected by the people. All the members of Parliament or MPs and the members of the state legislative assemblies elect the President. Thus, in a way, the President represents the nation. Though the President has nominal powers as per the Constitution, he or she plays an important role. All major government activities, policy decisions and laws are issued in the name of the President. The President takes all major decisions based on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Any bill passed by the Parliament becomes a law only if the President approves it. If the President wants, he or she can delay it and then send it again to the Parliament. If the Parliament passes the bill again, the President has to sign it. One major decision that the President makes on his or her own is to appoint the Prime Minister. The President appoints the leader of the majority party or the coalition that enjoys a majority support in the Lok Sabha as the Prime Minister. The judiciary includes all the courts at different levels in a country. The Indian judiciary is an independent judiciary that consists of the Supreme Court, High Courts, and District Courts. The Indian courts of law are further divided into two groups: civil courts and criminal courts. The civil courts deal with general disputes regarding land, property, and rights. The criminal courts deal with cases of murder, riot, and looting. The Supreme Court controls the judicial administration in the country and resolves disputes between citizens and the government, between two or more states, and between states and the Union government. The Indian judiciary is known for being independent from the legislature and the executive and is non-partisan. The judges do not act on the direction of the government or the ruling party. The judges for the Supreme Court and High Courts are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister and in consultation with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The senior judges of the Supreme Court select the new judges of the Supreme Court and the High Courts. Once appointed, it is difficult to remove a judge from his or her position. A judge can be removed only when an impeachment motion is passed separately by a two-thirds majority of members of each of the two houses of the Parliament. The Supreme Court and the High Courts have the power to interpret the Constitution. If the courts feel that any law or action of the government is against the Constitution, they can declare it invalid. After a judicial review, the courts can determine the constitutional validity of any law or action of the government. However, the Supreme Court has also ruled that the basic principles of the Constitution cannot be changed by the Parliament. It acts like a guardian of the fundamental rights. The Indian judiciary is independent in the appointment and removal of judges and in the execution of its powers. Anyone can approach the courts if public interest and human rights are affected by the actions of the government. This is called a public interest litigation. This way, the judiciary keeps the government and its officials in check. Due to this reason, people have a high level of confidence in the judiciary.